Hello, is it audible?
Yes, sir. Your voice is clear, sir.
Okay, voice is clear. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm sorry. At the time, I was not there around 2 o'clock. So we are very thankful to you, sir, Ankit, sir, for accepting our request and promptly responding to our mails. And we are very pleasure to have a eminent speaker like you. And it is very suitable topic for you to explain about the publications and how to write and what are the tips need to be followed while writing a scientific paper, as well as what are the various kinds of research papers. Few people may not know about the short communications will be there, as well as the letters will be there. So for accepting to deliver these contents, especially we are very much thankful
It's
on
okay. It's okay.
behalf of
It's my pleasure.
Department of Civil Engineering and Aditya Engineering College. We are very thankful to you, sir.
No,
And
it's
I
my
request,
Mhm.
sir, sir. And I request all the participants to utilize this opportunity to grab some knowledge regarding how to write the scientific paper, as well as what are the various tips need to be followed while writing the paper. Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ankit, sir.
No, it's okay.
And sorry for interrupting in
No.
between the session.
No.
Sir,
It's yeah. Thank you.
thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
So I was continuing. So I was mentioning the importance of drawing a figure. Okay, these are very useful, part of manuscript. Although we think writing text or other thing, but figures are very important because the first impression when we submit our manuscript. So in general, when we submit manuscript to most of the journals, in most of the journals they have different choice. Like you can submit a original research, means original article, like a journal article, which actually can accept any type of article, whether it's a review article, whether it's uh, you know um, the short community, anything. But then there are specifically, sections, subsections in every journal. Every journal have some subsection where they will ask you, is it a research article? Is it a review article? Is it short communication? So review articles are also very important. Actually, if you can write a proper review on a given topic, the chances of citations are very high, specifically for review article. And then comes short communication. Short communication are also research articles where if you think that your study is not very much in depth, but you have some new results. However, those you don't have very in-depth investigation, but those results are new and can be published. Then you can try short communication, because short communication is more like you can say a small ice cream, where the your results should be new. It's not like your results shouldn't be new. It should be new, novel, but it don't have to be very in depth. Okay, the investigation or the explanation part should not be in depth. So then you can go for communication, short communication, because sometimes we have good results, but in order to explain results, we don't have sufficient evidence. For that case, short communication is okay. But if you have sufficient evidence, if you have sufficient novel results, and your results, have can be backed by statistical analysis, then you should go for the first one, which is journal article, which is more lengthy. Short communication, most of the journals have a word limit. They can say not more than like 6 pages or 7 pages, depends on the type of journal. Then the fourth one is case studies. Actually, this is also very, very important. The fourth one. So the fourth one is case studies. So case studies is about suppose if you are working on some project, okay, some real engineering. Maybe you are doing some consultancy work, okay, or you're working on some real engineering project. Actually, some So case studies are not purely from research point of view, but it also it's can be from your project, okay, any consultancy work, but it should be presented in a more standard format also, case studies. So let's begin with, to go into original article. As I said, you call it research article, a journal article, which actually includes any type of study, which is most commonly written article by most of the researchers. So this article requires in-depth investigation. It has to be not very short. It has to be lengthy. As I said, it's detailed description. So here you need to mention introduction, method, results, discussion in detail. Okay. When I say results, means factual results. Discussion means you need to explain the results, why. Then you need to compare the results with previous studies and also tell the difference of your results with the previous study, and then again explain why. So this article requires in-depth investigation, okay, and it can be experimental, like laboratory field or numerical. It can be also a review article in itself, short communication or case study. So it's a journal article we can submit in any form. There is no such, but when we submit original research, the main thing is expectation. The expectation is that your study is in depth, okay, systematic. First the number of experiments should be more. Your results should be properly explained. Okay, it's not like you only mention results but no discussion. And also you should have evidence to explain results, not just hypothesis but evidence. So the expectation is generally very high, okay, if you want to submit original research in good journals. Okay, they expect your topic, your objectives, your method should be very rigorous, and your results should be new and well explained. But when it comes to review article, we call it critical and constructive analysis of existing. Now, review article is not same as summary. Okay, many studies I have seen, they tend to write review article more like a summary. Okay, it's not really a summary. It's more than summary. In review article, you need to actually analyze critically the results, even the results of the existing literature, and come out with, contradictions. Okay, more or less, I would say, the reviewer expect, like if you have 50 results from literature, suppose you're focusing is on permeability. Okay, the permeability of soil, suppose with fly ash. I'm just giving a very normal topic. Now, if you can come out with 50 studies which shows contradictions, like some studies say permeability increase, some studies say decrease, some study give this hypothesis, some study give another hypothesis, then you can point it out in a review article, say that there are contradictions in literature. There's no definite conclusion or answer. So specific gaps or problems need to be identified by collectively analyzing the data and also their findings from literature. Then you need to mention about scan resource contradictions. In civil engineering, actually, most of the studies are not conducted in the field. Okay, although most studies are conducted in the lab and using numerical modeling, but there are always some kind of gap with the field, with the reality. So that is also something. I mean, this is just a tip. Okay, it's not like every article have a problem, but most of the articles they have some issue when it comes to comparison with the field. So they don't generally present. So you don't have to provide your own data. If you can provide, it's also not bad, but you don't have to provide your own experiment or own numerical modeling for review article. You just need to analyze your review article, which is already published in literature. And then I think most of the time they're looking is contradictions. Okay, because if there is definite conclusion from review articles, okay, I mean from all the published literature, it means the study is well known. Okay, this finding. But if there are contradiction, this is something need to be pointed, or something which is unknown. Okay. Yeah. So suppose if the properties of fly ash are not well linked with permeability, then you can say This is something which is not known. Okay. So review articles are important. Specifically, I would say there is no requirement as such to do your own experiment. You don't need any requirement. Yeah. You don't need to have your own experiment. However, you need to provide insights from existing studies. So, and also it's very useful for citations. And for proposal, usually for proposal, if you have a review article, it can form a background, can form as a background for your proposal, and also can help to frame some of the objectives. Okay. Types of review article, I mean, usually literature review is something we are more, I mean, familiar with. Then there is systematic review, and meta-analysis is quite, I would say it's much more advanced. I mean, it's quite often used in, not in civil engineering, but more often used in epidemiological research, specifically, when they are analyzing in public health case studies. Yeah. So when it comes to case study, so this is also one type of article. I mean, you can see there is also a journal specifically now. It's open. We call it Journal of Case Study in Construction Material. So case study, you're talking about actual engineering project. So if you're doing some consultancy work, if you're involved in some real project, you can actually frame your work in form of case study article to submit in journal. Actually, many journals now encourage this, although they don't expect you to provide a research insight, but they expect you to analyze case studies using theory, using basic theory of suppose soil mechanics or other discipline. Factual reporting and scientific mechanism from real projects. Factual reporting is important, but if you can provide some mechanism or understanding, is even better. You can, if you want, in the case study, it doesn't have to be purely from project, but you can say 70% you provide is from real project, 30% you can do your own laboratory work or numerical modeling to complement or to provide mechanism or understanding. Okay. Then if there is any new works or maintenance which is going on, you can provide insights from that case study. But again, the main thing is the documentation or has to be very standard. Okay, it shouldn't look like a report, but more like a research document. Okay, so publication of high description of. So if you have some materials, like I mean, there's a journal also on this. So you can use this as also to submit article in form of case study. So this is more important for researchers who are involved in a lot of industry work, okay, especially in civil engineering to understand this. Okay. So letters or short communication is the other one where you don't require in-depth investigation. When I say in-depth investigation means if you don't have the explanation, okay, not required as such, or evidence is not required, but you have more, but your results should be new. Okay. Your data will be interesting to many researchers, means you have some new data. Okay. After they are useful for research with results when they are time sensitive, have strict length limits. Yes. So geotechnic letters is actually a special journal which only focuses on publishing new results or interesting results related in geotechniques, where you don't need enough explanation. Okay, or you don't need to do too many experiments to publish. So this is also one very good way. I would say many journals have this now option. Either they call it letters usually, or they call it short communication. Okay. So many journals have this option now that where you can submit your research, where you feel that your study is not in depth, or you have some interesting results but not full scale study. So now so this is all about type of articles. Now coming to the first important point, which is on how to write different parts of publication. So I will start with title, abstract, then keywords, then introduction and methodology and results. So in general, usually we have a title page with author affiliation. I think this is the first common one. Then you have an abstract, you have keyword. Then this is actually the main part of manuscript. Okay. This is not required. This is optional. Okay. This we usually have in manuscript. Okay. This is optional. We require, we may not. So this is the main parts of manuscript. So introduction. So abstract and keywords are the back, okay, the front, where we have title, abstract, and keyword. So then we come introduction. So I think most of the researchers knew this already. When it comes to title, it's very very important. Nowadays, specifically because there are too many submissions in the system online. So the editor, many times editor, when they look at the article, they can make it out the study is new or old. Okay. It has to be crisp and clear, and the selling points of your work. Now, your title should not be very general, saying that investigation of permeability of soil with fly ash. Okay, this is very general title. You have to be very, very specific. What is the selling point of your work? Okay, suppose your selling point is a new mechanism of permeability of soil with amended with fly ash. Then it's little bit catchy, and also tell something there is a new mechanism. Okay, so you need to be very, very specific in your title, not more than 2 lines. So it should have some scientific words and not too general. Okay, as I told you, many of the times the title, if they are too general, the study will be rejected. And keywords, similarly, keywords, although the purpose of keywords mainly is to identify reviewers. Okay, identify reviewers for your article, but keywords can also be used to express or understand your novelty of your article, something new. So again, so one thing always remember, why we write article is, okay, when we want to submit our research, the 2 points are very important. Okay, remember, novelty and rigor. Okay, so these are the 2 things, where most important things the reviewer is looking for in your entire article. Right from your title should should depict novelty. Okay. Your keyword should also depict novelty. Your abstract should depict novelty and rigor. Rigor means kind of how much careful your methodology or your approach is. Okay. So keywords, again, you talk about selling points, novelty. Okay. It's important for searching articles. So this is the most important use of, for editors, they like to search reviews through keywords. Usually 5 to 6 keywords are important. But try again, to me, I always want that as a researchers, we should focus on novelty, what is new, and try to focus on this novelty point in while writing manuscript. Always try to keep these 2 points in mind: novelty and rigor. For example, just to give you idea, so this is name of a journal. Okay. This is the name of journal. This is name of publisher. Okay. Now Elsevier, Springer, ASC, they are all publishers. Okay, and each publisher may have thousands of journals under their name. So usually we never say Elsevier is good or Springer is good or ASC is good. Actually, they are just publishers. They can have good journals, they can have bad journals, they can have journals with reputation, they may not have journals with it. So ASC, similarly, ASC is American journals, ASTM also American. So ASC and ASTM also publishers. They may have, they are societies, but they also have a publishing group. So some of their journals are very highly reputed in ASC. Some journals are not reputed in ASC. So this concept also we need to remove in mind, that these are just name of publisher. Nature is also a publisher. It's also a publisher. It's a company. Actually, when I say publisher, they are just companies. Actually, they are making profits. In reality, they are just companies. They own these journals. The journal belong to this company. Okay, so none of these companies, none of these publishers are good or bad. They just have their journals. We submit our manuscript in this journal. So they have a process to review. They review our manuscript, then they make it accepted. Now we have a choice. We can publish it open access, or we can do it subscription. So when we do open access, the work belongs to us. But when we do subscription, paid subscription, actually we sell our work to publisher. Okay, so this is the title of your study. Okay, so this is the author. Okay, this is affiliation of author, and just giving you idea when you see a manuscript. So these are the keywords. Okay. And this is abstract. Okay, so just by looking at the keywords, you can actually understand what kind of study the author is talking about. Okay, so it's talking about farming. Lysimeter is a kind of field setup. Modeling is numerical modeling. So these are the type of study it's talking about. And this is another example. You have these are authors. This is the title of the study. This is the okay. Now, when you look at the keywords here in the bottom, so if you look at the keywords, you will realize that from the keywords you can understand. So this author, the study focus on bentonite slurry. It's a desiccation cracking, so they are investigating cracking in a bentonite. They also investigate the effect of salt, and this desiccation is due to evaporation. So just by looking at keywords, you can actually make it out what kind of study they are talking about, right? So it's not very big. I mean, you can see it from keywords, you can understand that the objective of the study. So when you write your keywords, you can also think that how from the keywords, the reviewer or the editor can understand what study you are doing. Okay, so the more easy you make other people to understand your study, the more easy is or more chances are for your manuscript to be accepted. Okay, this is very important thing. If you make it more difficult for other researchers to understand your study or manuscript, the chances are your manuscript will be rejected. So one is ease of readership. Okay, ease to understand. How people can understand your work if you make good figures, if you write very precisely, if you write something which is novel, not like very general things, then you are able to sell important points from your study. Otherwise, even if your research is new, even if your study is new, but if your writing is not effective or you're writing something very general, your manuscript will be still rejected. So abstract usually comes in the beginning of the manuscript. And though it's come in the beginning, but when we write manuscript, I always advise students or scholars to write in the end. Okay, abstract. After completing other parts of manuscript, they should write abstract in the end, because abstract is like a trailer of a movie. It's very important. It's very short and important. It only contains, you see, major aspect. Very, very important, because this abstract will be read by editor, reviewer first. And in abstract, if you are not able to convey your two things, okay, again remember, in abstract also, if you are not able to convey your novelty and rigor, if these two things are missing in abstract, your manuscript will be most likely will be rejected, and they will not even bother to review it further. Okay, so because I told you many this year time is very less, so because there are too many submissions, so editors are very choosy now to select only those manuscripts which they feel have some novelty or some impact. Okay. So my suggestion usually is to write your paper first. Okay. Although we know abstract is in the beginning, but students or scholars can finish other parts of manuscript first, then go to the abstract. Okay. Your abstract format, I mean, depends on your journal. If you're writing a report in university, it depends on your university guideline. Usually abstract can be graphical or non-graphical. Now these days, some journals, they are asking for graphical abstract also. Okay, this also is very useful for review purpose. Okay. Number of words, usually I can say for conference is 150 words, usually for conference papers. But for journal, you are talking about 200 to 250 words are normally, but it depends on different journals. Some journal can go up to 300 also. And also, especially if you are working on a multidisciplinary topic, I think you need to think about the audience. Suppose your topic is related to vegetation, and soil. Okay. Now, in this case, when you're submitting paper to a journal more focused on vegetation, then you need to choose your terminology or the words which are more closely understood by readers from vegetation. Suppose if you're submitting your work to engineering or people or geotechnical engineering, then your problem significance or your words should be more closely associated with you know uh, readers or researchers from engineering, because they will be the reviewers and they will be the audience once your paper is published. So writing the abstract. So in abstract also, actually, every abstract is divided into 4 main parts. Okay. So one is your background, okay, which includes significance of your problem. Summary you can give of your previous studies, maybe 1 or 2 lines, and limitation. Now this is very important, limitation. Then is objective. Now this is very important in abstract. So your abstract also divided into 4 parts, although we don't write it in different parts, but every abstract is still divided into 4 parts. The first is the background, significance, summary of study, limitations, then you have main objective. Then you have material methods, okay. Then you have key results and conclusion. Now, if you count this, your abstract could be up to, I mean, if you count all this 2, 3, 3, 4, 3, 7, so it's roughly around 10 lines. You're talking about average, your abstract. And you can see your results and conclusion also around 2, 3 lines. Your material methods also 3, 4. Now, these are not fixed. Okay, it depends on the type of study you are doing and your results. Okay, suppose your study is focused on developing some new instrument, okay, new methodology or new instrument, then this part you can expand to 5 to 6 lines because you are focusing on developing new method or new material. Suppose your objective is to focus on new results, then this part you can go up to 3 to 4 lines even, or you can reduce this part. So you can adjust the length of background, objective, materials, and conclusion depending on your study achievement. Suppose your study focus on your new results, then you focus more on 4. You can reduce number 3. Number 2 has to be 1 or 2 lines, and then number 1. Now coming to first, okay, just hold for a while. Okay, suppose so coming to the background. So in background, the first line should be more focused on the overview, like where your application of your research lies. In engineering, suppose we are talking in civil engineering. Then summary of past studies, you can simply say that previous study have focused on this particular aspect, and there is a limitation or lacking of this. This is very important point. And then objective. Now, many researchers, they have issue I have seen with the objective. So objective and methodology should not be mixed. Okay, and please do not list more than 2 or 3 objectives, because most of the studies there has to be 1 or 2 objectives, major objectives. Okay, if you have more than 4 objectives or 3, it means either you have too much work, okay, in one study, or these objectives are overlap. Okay, maybe they are overlapping each other, so you need to reduce it. Okay, some may be redundant. So in objective, I suggest when you write a sentence, you should write very clearly the objective of this study is to. Objective is to study, is to investigate or explore. Now, this sentence will help reader to very clearly understand your objective. Most of the time, I tell you, the researcher, they mix their objective with method. So if you say 5 compressive strength tests were conducted, now these tests are not objective, they are task. They are not even method, they are task. So method is not objective and objective is not method. Okay, don't mix it. If you say field monitoring was conducted, so field monitoring or field testing or numerical modeling, they are not objective, they are methodology very clearly. Okay, your objective has to be written clearly, separate. Your methodology is separate. The third point comes is material and methods. So the third point comes is material. So in this, you need to mention what material, what methodology you're talking about, laboratory field, numerical, or what program you're talking about, simulations or like this. Okay. So here you need to very carefully select. You cannot write everything because um, your methodology in reality can be very long. Okay. I mean detailed. But here you need to mention only the important one. Okay, suppose if you are doing compressive strength test. Now compressive strength test, the procedure is not new, right? So you don't need to mention the procedure. It's well known. These tests are well known. Okay, you can just mention um, 10 compressive strength tests were conducted using a standard apparatus. That's it. You don't need to mention procedure because this is not all new. Okay, important, which is new, you can mention. Which is old, you try to make it very short. Okay? Remember, even when you write your abstract, two things are very important. Focus on novelty and rigor. Suppose you repeat some experiments, maybe 3 times you repeat experiment, okay? Then I think it is better to mention in the abstract that you repeat your experiment 3 times to check any variability. Okay? Or if you do some statistical analysis, you can mention in the abstract because that helps to depict rigor. Okay? Repetition also helps to depict rigor. And suppose if you develop some new experiment, design some new experiment, then please mention it because it helps to depict novelty. So what you write in abstract, in background objective, especially objective, method, and results, please focus on these 2 points, novelty and rigor. This is something you have to continuously depict in your writing. Now this is very standard, very simple, very simple. I actually use it sometimes for undergraduate students, but to give you idea, like we have a problem, research problem, we have an objective, very clearly one line objective, then method, material method, and results conclusion. So if you read one by one, actually every abstract you can try to break down into 4 parts. Every abstract can be broken down, and most important is you should try to see the objective carefully, and then conclusion, results, and conclusion. I combine, you can put it separate also, results and conclusion, but I combine it for the sake. But most of the abstract can be divided into these 4 parts. So objective, now the main point I want to mention is objective. Okay? So as I told you, objective has to be very clearly written to investigate the strength of soil at different moisture content, not more than 2 objectives. Understand the main objective of the study. And also remember, experiments, I told you, right? Experiments, tests, simulations, they are not objective. Many a time students write the objective of the study is to conduct compressive strength testing. Now, to do testing is not objective, okay? It's a task. Material method, similarly, I told you, you need to mention the soil because the soil is practically with the hand. Then test was conducted using apparatus. 10 samples were taken and the standard was found. Because it's a standard test, you can mention ASTM standard was found. But in case your experiment is newly designed, then you can describe it. You can take more space to describe. So it means you need to know your selling point. Okay. The most important thing is the selling point you need to know. If your selling point is to design a new experiment, then you can mention more details of, you know, these 2 things. But if your experiment is not new, itself. I mean, this is very standard apparatus. Then you don't need to mention in detail. You can reduce it. So before you write an abstract, you should know your selling point. If your selling point is in experiment or developing new method, then you write more in methodology. But if your selling points are results, then you write more results. Okay? So knowing your own selling point of your study is very, very important. Okay? So you can use, I mean, for standard tests, you can mention the ASTM standard, okay, like or British standard or Indian standard. Yeah. Key results, again, this is also very important. Now, you may have 5 to 6 results, but not all results are new. Okay, again, here also your own judgment comes. Which results are new and impactful? Only mention those 1 or 2 important results. Don't mention all 5 results, because if you mention all 5, you are diluting your result. Because when a reviewer read your paper, he or she shouldn't think that there are many results. Okay, and results should not be general. Okay, an implication. Now, if you have some results, you should also be able to mention implication. Okay, suppose these results are useful for design of slopes in a region, then you can mention it. But this is not very compulsory. Okay, implication is not compulsory, but you can still mention it. But most important is your four parts of abstract. As I told you, your background, which includes limitation, of previous study, objective, material methods, and results conclusion. So these 4 parts are important. Other consideration, like abstract should be self-contained, fully self-contained. As I told you, like your background limitation, your 4 parts should exist. Word count limitations. As I told you, most of the abstract in conference, especially in conference, is 150 words. And in conference, you don't need to mention background too much. In conference, actually, for conference abstract, even if you want, you can start from objective to results, and results don't have to be detailed. Okay, because it's a conference abstract. But for journal publication, it is better to mention background, including limitation, by objective, then methodology, then results. How to write keywords? I mean, I already mentioned, but introduction. Keywords also, I think I mentioned before, we don't have to go through. Then come to introduction. Now, introduction, we need to first understand what's the purpose of introduction. So introduction is more like a storytelling, I would say. I call it storytelling. So you tell actually a story to the readers or reviewers that, look, what research I will be doing and why it's important. Okay, you are telling a story what led to formation of objectives of your research. So what was the background that lead to or convince you to do this research? Okay, so it's a storytelling, basically convince. Okay, you convince yourself, we convince ourselves why we do this research. Okay, what research we do and why. To convince ourselves what research we do and why. Actually, it's a convincing story. The whole idea is to convince, okay, now this study is important, that we can do this study, these are the objectives, and this will be the impact. So it helps to answer the following question: what's the significance of study? What research has been done by others? Because if you want to convince somebody that you want to do research, it means you need to tell about what people have done, right? Previous people. So that means literature review. So this is called literature review, right? What has not been done? What is hypothesis, motivation? Now these two are very important. It doesn't mean if somebody did not do it, you must do it. Okay, there has to be a reason, proper motivation why you have to do it. Then objective. It's important to claim novelty, also justification of doing research. So your report or paper cannot be published if your introduction is not technically sound. Okay. Now, introduction also, like abstract, you can also divide introduction into these parts, 6 parts, okay? Every introduction you can, in general, divide. So the first paragraph can be your significance or application, like a very broader picture, you know. Then coming very specifically to your second or third. So this can be your second or third paragraph. Then this could be your fourth paragraph if you want. This could be your fifth paragraph. Now, depends. I mean, if you increase your literature reviews, you can go 3-paragraph literature review. This can be 5th paragraph. This can be 6th paragraph. Okay. So in introduction, also actually you can divide into this part. Now think carefully. Your significance or application is a very broader picture. Then you basically actually it's like a triangle. Okay. So this is significance. Then you narrow it down to literature review. So this is literature review 1. This is literature review 2. This is literature review 3. Now this part come limitation, motivation, and here are your objective. Okay, so from a very broader picture, you narrow it down to your objectives. Okay, so the most difficult part in this is to write this literature review. Actually, this is most difficult part. Now, this literature review, I would call it more like a story. Because you know maybe 50 studies or 100 studies relevant to your objective. It's possible that you don't know which one is important, very important, which one is less important. Okay, so you need to narrow it down to okay. So you need to narrow it down to very specific objective. Okay. So when we write introduction, I mean, I will write for you. Usually, I advise students to write introduction again. First students can complete, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, and then introduction they can write again before writing abstract they can write introduction, and before when they write introduction actually they can make a flow chart. So take a piece of paper, on a piece of paper, don't use your computer or text or word file. Okay, just take a piece of paper and draw a flow chart. So in flow chart I mean this is brainstorming, you need to brainstorm. So write an objective, then because these are more closer to you now. You know what is the objective of your study, right? Then here you need to write limitations, hypothesis, and motivation. Okay. So you need to work reverse. Okay. First write objective, then go behind, then write limitation, hypothesis, motivation. Then based on this objective, choose literature. Now you need to choose literature. This is not easy to do. Come by experience. Now you need to choose literature which suits these two things. Okay, your objective. Don't choose literature which is very irrelevant to your topic. Then from there you go backward, then you write significance of your problem. Okay. Now this thing you need to draw on a piece of paper and you need to brainstorm, and then here in the literature you need to pick studies which you will include. Okay, you don't have to include 50 studies, but at least latest. Okay, if this is 23, there must be some studies related to 23 and 22. Remember, this is also something reviewer editor looks into. If your literature review is very old, like you're reviewing 5-year-old literature or 6, you don't have any recent papers in it, then again most likely it will be rejected. Okay, so work backwards. I mean, you need to follow the reverse path. Okay. Again, I mean, I have one example which is published in one paper we use in transportation geotechnics. So if you want, I can forward the paper after the lecture to the head of department and for your look. So in the first point is significance. The second point again is literature review. Okay, and then we have this limitations and hypothesis, like you see what has not been done. However, no such studies exist and compacted this. Then we have hypothesis, like if there could be chances of preferential infiltration through fiber soil composite. And then we have motivation, like why we need this study. Okay, so this has been done very clearly in one paper that we publish. I will forward for your reading. The main idea is, remember, your introduction also is divided into 6 parts. Okay. If you can write it clearly, you can make your introduction sound very technical and very convincing. Okay, remember your introduction is it's basically to convince reviewer that your study is worthy to be published. Okay, so this is something I mentioned. So motivation. So in this study, actually, we had motivation even like, I will tell you like we have 2 different types of motivation. One is because we use fiber from water hyacinth, plant. We use fiber. So one motivation is from environmental point of view, that it will help to save environment. Another motivation basically is from, this is waste management. Okay, we can call it waste management. Another is from, okay, yeah. So one is, this is natural fiber, is very economical, we don't need, and also it can have very long life. Another is from waste management because it has been used for, it is very invasive, it creates a lot of environmental issues. So this is motivation. So one motivation is from geotechnical point of view, that we can understand, use this infiltration as a parameter for seepage analysis. Another motivation is from environmental point of view. So the whole idea is you should be able to figure out yourself what is your objective, what the motivation behind it, hypothesis. Once these are clear, then you can use, as I told you, just draw a flow chart first. So you need to draw this flowchart on a piece of paper. Don't use computer or Word file. Just use a piece of paper and try to brainstorm. What, before writing introduction, you should draw a flowchart and try to brainstorm what you will include in this introduction. Now, each paragraph is not separate. It has to be, link. Like when you move from first to second paragraph, second to third or to fourth, then to fifth, then to sixth. It should not be piecewise. You understand that there is no linkage. It has to be very smooth transition from first to second paragraph, from second to third, third to fourth. It should be more like a story, like somebody is reading a novel. It shouldn't be like, first paragraph is totally separate from second, second is totally separate from third. There is no connection. There is no connection. So the transition has to be very, very smooth. Okay. But most important is you should be able to know how to draw this flowchart for your brainstorming. You need to brainstorm yourself what should be included in objective, what should be included in limitation, hypothesis, motivation, and literature and significance. For this, you can even practice to draw this flowchart from published papers. Suppose you can pick some good papers from top journals and use those published papers to draw this flowchart so that you can understand how people write papers. Okay. How people write papers, you can understand by drawing this flowchart, especially introduction, you can understand. Okay. So this is something I always, advise students to draw a flowchart or make it clear to yourself before writing intro. It's not about what we write or how much we write. It's about how we think. Okay. So that's why actually scientific writing, I always say scientific thinking. Okay. Although our main objective is to write, but actually before writing, we need to think. It's not about writing. In the end, it's about thinking. If we can train our thinking, we will know what to write. Okay. So thinking is more important than writing, because for us to write in English is not difficult, but thinking is more difficult. Okay. So this is all about introduction. Now, before I begin methodology, just to give you idea of figures. Again, figures are very useful um, for researchers, because actually by looking at figures, one can tell, give an impression, are you careful or a careless researcher? Second is trust. Figure should be self-explainable. Understanding of results become easy. The methodology can be easier. The chances of acceptance of publication is higher, like if our figures are good. Okay. Now, one very simple depiction. Suppose you are drawing this figure. First important point is scale. You should mention the scale in every figure, especially in engineering. Yeah. Next is arrow, direction of arrow. Now this is where people have done. Your arrow direction should be towards the object, not towards the label. Okay, this arrow direction is wrong. Okay. Your arrow direction should be towards the object, not towards the label or text. Okay. So every image should have a caption. Okay. Now this is very simple. That I'll give you. So for to capture image, use a very good camera, light adjustment, clear background, no noise in the background of setup. Behind the experiment, you should place some kind of sheet or cover. Okay. For example, this one, if you look at this, okay, if you look at this picture, it's very clear. Okay, the dimensions are clear, the background is very clear, scale and dimensions, the labeling of each part, very clear background, resolution of image is very high. You can see the direction of arrows is towards the object. Okay, your direction of arrow should be towards the object, not towards the text. Label should be consistent, clear. Your focus of image should be on setup. So that's why the background, we cover it with blue. Okay. Font size, plain and simple decoration. I mean, no decoration. Don't decorate it. Font type should be Times New Roman, and so these are the checklists. Okay. You can use it to come up with this kind of a figure for a very small experimental setup. Now, when you draw this figure, when you make it, it actually shows, somehow give an impression to reviewer or reader that you are very careful researcher. Okay. But if your figure is not good, the reviewer reader may think that you are not, you don't have concentration. Now, if you talk about field, now this is very good example for field setup or field testing or monitoring. Suppose if you are doing field monitoring in Andhra Pradesh, you can give a map of India, like here is a map of China, and then there are two field testing sites. One is this location, one is this location. So first you give a map of your country, like it can be map of China or map of India. Then you give two locations of, like again from the big picture, you narrow it down, have two testing sites, and then you give the overview. Now why we give this is because in civil engineering, especially in civil and environmental engineering, climate, geography actually is very important when we are doing any testing, whether it's soil testing, water, any testing. So climate and geography is very important. And that's the reason why we have to give this kind of a map, satellite map, because it gives us idea that, okay, this is more a hilly area, okay, mountain area. This is more plainer agricultural land. Okay, so you have an idea where the water table lies, okay, the climate is. This is very important because when we, as I told you, when we describe our results in civil engineering or environmental engineering, climate or geography impact our results. Okay, suppose a person from US or Canada, other countries, they want to understand our results. At least they should know, okay, in Andhra Pradesh, in this area, the climate look like this, the geography look like this. Okay, so you can give a map of India, you can give, then point it out where the Andhra Pradesh is, then you can point it out the satellite map, which can show, the at least green area and the water or the mountains. Okay. Like here, another example, we did some testing in Guwahati. It's near the river, Brahmaputra River. So we show a map of India, then show a map of, Guwahati, and then we show campus of IIT Guwahati where we did the testing. So at least, using this one can understand the river is very close, the water table may be quite high. Okay. So one figure, okay, experimental setup, like if you have your very simple experimental setup, you can come out with this kind of a figure. This is a checklist I have written so that it's easy for you to, when you draw a figure for your own experiments, suppose you're doing some experiments in the lab, you can come out with similar figures. Or materials, if you have some materials like, fibers, you can also, again, when you take a picture, again, use camera, you should have a scale, okay? Scale is very important. Light adjustment, clear background, okay? So taking picture and making it professional is very, very important. Okay, if this is missing, I can tell you most of the time the editor or reviewer may not be comfortable to review, even to review the manuscript. If your experiment is very complex, I mean, you cannot take a good picture, then you can come out with a schematic diagram. We call it schematic diagram like this. Even you can use AutoCAD to draw some diagram, but you can draw a plane view. Okay, you can draw a side view. So plan view and side view, you can draw to mark which instruments you are using, which boundary conditions you have, and scale. For field also similar, okay, because especially in the soil mechanics, our sensors are in the ground, or suppose you are monitoring a building, which is very large, it's very difficult to show the sensors, then you can come up with some kind of schematic diagram, okay. Schematic diagram means like this. It's a kind of cartoon, but you can show the locations or boundary conditions. Especially the purpose is to show different instrumentation, boundary condition, vegetation, drainage, and scale. So you can come up with this kind of diagram. So these are important while writing manuscript, because many a times I can tell you that the readers don't have time to read everything in the text. They will like to see figures and try to understand what work you have done. So when it comes to methodology, okay, I cannot cover every point in methodology, but in general, most of the journals, they ask you to write materials and methodology. So most of the sections are depicted as materials and methodology, but some journals can have only methodology, but meaning is same. First, we go describe materials. Suppose you have fiber material, you have soil material, so we go with fiber properties, soil properties. Now, when you describe this material, again, think from 2 points, okay? Novelty and rigor. Novelty means your material has some new characteristics, something similar and something new. Now, these materials are not new, but maybe their properties that you identify could be some different from the previous properties. Okay, so it's a chance you can compare properties with literature. Okay, because these properties can further help you to compare your results also with literature. How your material in your study is different from previous study. It also gives you some justification that the material you are using is not very out of box. Okay, it's not very vague, and also give you confidence that the properties that you measure for this material are sensible, are reasonable. It's not like out of order. So justification of properties, and also you can use these properties to explain results. So in this, it is better if you can compare with literature. Suppose you have a special type of soil or special type of fiber in Andhra Pradesh. So you can mention that, okay, these fibers that properties I measured in Andhra Pradesh, these are little different from the properties of similar fiber that was found in other countries like China, US, or Canada, or any country. Okay, you can cite that literature. Okay, I use coir fiber found in Andhra Pradesh now, but this coir fiber, the properties are very different from the coir fibers which were published, okay, reported in China or Canada or US or other countries. So this will give reviewer more confidence that when you are doing study, you are also thinking about results which are available globally, and you are trying to bring out novelty. So how you bring out novelty is you must compare your results or your numbers or your experimental values with that of literature. And another thing I think very commonly we often use is SCM image. But SCM image, I tell you these days, most of the journals, they are not very satisfied because it only gives you qualitative idea of porosity. But to quantitative idea, usually we go for very advanced testing like MIP. Okay. There are another testings are there. But remember, when we report SCM, two things are very important. One is magnification for SCM and the scale. So scale is given here. Scale. So scale and magnification is very important. You can only compare images at same magnification and same scale. You cannot compare at two different magnification. Like you cannot compare these two images. Okay, you can compare these two or these two or this, but two different magnifications you should not compare. And also, as I told you, if some properties you cannot measure in the lab, suppose there is a problem that we don't have more instrumentation or we don't have certain specific testing machines, then you can try to report, at least try to report those properties from literature. Okay, you can try to do that only in case you don't have any option. Okay, like here, some of the properties like surface area per volume, we actually got from literature for this type of biochars. Okay, in case we don't have any option. And these are all about material, first thing. Then comes methodology. In methodology, first part is equipment. Okay, or we call it experimental setup. You can call it experimental setup. So this experimental setup, again, first is to draw a figure, like I show you. Then you need to mention the details of the setup. Now, if the setup is old, like compressive strength test, very well known, you don't need to describe the setup in detail in journal. In journal, you don't need to do, but for your report, for your technical report for undergraduate or postgraduate, you may have to do it. But for journal, we don't need to describe standard equipments which are well known in civil engineering. We don't need to describe again because they are well known. But some instruments like this, they are not well known in engineering, civil engineering. So we have to describe the working principle. We also need to mention previous study if they have used this because it gives confidence. When we mention that previous studies have used this equipment, it means it gives confidence to reviewer that you are not using something which has never been used. Okay. Proper labeling of figure showing boundary conditions. And if you have a theory, you can also mention some theory which is related to this equipment. Now, this is required only in case you are using equipment which is not well known in civil engineering. If it is well known, you don't need to describe, like compressive strength, direct shear test, triaxial test. We don't need to describe the working principle, okay, because it is well known. But yes, we do need to give the boundary conditions. Okay? We don't need to give the material, even though equipment is old or new. Now, after that experimental setup, we have test plan. We call it test program and procedure. Test program, you can make a table like this. Say that these are the number of tests you do. Test number 1, test number 2, test number 3, like this. So we call this is a test ID. So these are the boundary conditions like evaporation, transpiration, evapotranspiration. Okay, and these are the true characteristics. So number of test series, total test, type of test. Table showing test series is good. Okay, you can show this. This is a table which shows test series, which parameters you vary, which parameters you use or control. Procedure, you need to mention. So this is called, actually, this one is called test plan. Okay. So after that, we can mention procedure. For each test, what procedure we adapt. Okay. So in methodology, you have testing equipment, experimental setup. Then you have test plan, and then we have test procedure. Now, test procedure, again, I am telling you. So the most important thing they are looking in test procedure is rigor. When I say rigor, Rigor means you need to provide explanation why you use this procedure. Okay, we call it justification. Okay. Did we follow procedure that, similar to the field, or simplification from the field? So we need to mention it very clearly. Okay, why we use this procedure, and justification is very important. So for justification, we can use literature. We can use literature to justify. Okay, I mean, this has been done by previous researchers, so we are using it. So just to summarize, in materials method, I think the first important thing is to draw figures of materials, characterization, figure of experimental setup showing basic setup, sensors, boundary conditions. Then you have table that shows the material properties of this. Table you can have for test plan, test program. Then you need to write the text, okay, for all these things. So first, before you draw write method section, I suggest you to focus on figures. Figures are more important. If you know what figures you need to draw, then writing text is not difficult. So avoid long paragraphs means your paragraph should not be more than 1.5 page, each paragraph. If it's more than 1.5 page, think of how to break it. Okay. So when you add a new subsection, okay, you can create a new subsection with a specific name. Okay, don't add very general names. Okay, subsections should have very specific names. I have seen many papers, the subsections are too general, like soil, only fly ash, or soil fly ash. Don't write such kind of names or titles in subsection. Write very clearly what is the purpose of this paragraph. Say this is not dye experiment. This is dye experiment for verifying water flow along soil fiber interface. If you write this, then it's very clear from the title of the subsection that, okay, this subsection is focused on, introducing dye experiment to verify this. It's very clear. Otherwise, if you write only dye experiment, it's not clear. Okay, so this is just another example of test plan. Okay. So suppose you are doing field testing. So for field testing, your figures try to show the map of your country, map of location of site. Try to include the profiles, your soil or geological profile. Okay. Figure of materials, like if you're soil or biochar. Then figure for properties like, SCM image, MIP. Then instrumentation, like if you have boundary conditions, I mean, instrument mean experimental setup, then boundary conditions. Now this in field, the instrumentation sometimes is not easy to show. Then you may need to go for schematic diagram. Okay, remember. Yeah. So this is main point. Okay. So just to give you idea, if you have a field monitoring paper, you can include a site like this is for Hong Kong. So my site is located here in Hong Kong, testing site. And you have material properties like soil properties you have. Then you have overview. Now actual site picture has to be there. Only this picture is not enough. I mean, if you show, so this is actual site picture. This is instrument. Though this is the schematic diagram. Okay. So this is the one I told you. We call it schematic diagram. Okay. So this is wow. So in numerical modeling, I think if you are writing a paper on numerical modeling, then you need to mention numerical domain, includes boundary conditions, your especially your dimensions, your boundary conditions, and then your input parameters. Okay, so when you write input parameters, you need to mention where you obtain from. You measure it or you obtain from some literature. You need to mention very clearly. And then you give a numerical, just like test plan. You also have a numerical plan like this. So this is about this. So the last part is results discussion and conclusion. Now, why I mentioned results and discussion, I'll give you idea. Results means factual results. some explanation. Discussion means when you go in depth about the results, understand the results. Now, to give you idea, so for results, we need graph. Again, we cannot write results section without understanding how to draw a graph. Okay. So when you draw a graph, suppose you have a strength and moisture content, any graph. Okay. Now here also very important point, 2 points you should consider: novelty and rigor. Now in this graph, novelty is not clear because this is one result. For novelty, you need to compare your results with literature. This comparison is missing, right? So in results and discussion, your factual observation from graph is important. Okay. Then you have a discussion to claim. So results focus on factual observation. Discussion focus on explaining the results. To claim your novelty, results are reasonable. Like it's not like your results are out of range. Okay, and justification of study. You can also explain results using theory. I mean, if it's theoretically possible, or you can say that it's deviating from theory and explain why. Remember, two-part points are there in most of the articles which you write. Results is factual observation. Discussion, very important, is to explain results and compare with literature. So we call it cross-reference. Okay, when we say compare with literature, actually we call it cross-reference. Explain if there is any similarity or difference with other studies. Okay. If it's similar, you can say the the results are similar to that published in this. But if it's different, you can also say why it's different. Okay. So just to give you an idea, okay, like for example, if you have a study like permeability, you measure, now these lines actually is from literature, right? So it will give you some idea that the permeability that you measure for the sandy soil is similar to that which is published in literature. But you know, if our results are always similar to those published in literature, then it means our study is not new. So it's very important that you know our results have some difference with literature. Specifically, in not all literature, but at least some literature, and we should be able to explain it. Because if our results are same like literature, then it means we don't need to do our study. Our study is old, it's not new. So there has to be a difference. And then comes explanation. So when you explain, now this is very, very important. When you explain, we either have, you know, evidence is complete. We can say this, when your evidence is complete, you say this is due to. Very confident. When your evidence is not complete, it's partially complete, then you can say this is probably, because you are not sure about it, or maybe due to, like this. When there is indirect evidence, you can say this is likely. Okay, you can say this is likely. Okay. So you can plot y versus x. Use enhanced meta file. Font size, font type, you can see Times New Roman. Okay. So to describe results, same thing. First is to describe the graph, the trend. Okay, this is figure 2 shows the major root biomass, the shoot biomass. Then you explain, okay, this as observed from the graph, the root biomass tends to increase linearly with shoot biomass, except for one case. And then you explain why. Okay, so very slowly you need to do that. Okay, first you explain, tell us what is this graph correlate. So this graph shows us the correlation between root biomass and shoot. So you need to start with something, what this graph is. Okay, I will. So figure 2 correlates the major biomass of shoot and root of 6 tree individuals. So first you introduce the figure. You introduce the figure to the reviewer. Okay, this is the figure. This figure correlates this and this. Then you start describing figure one by one. Okay, start describing the trend. So first you introduce the figure. I'll show you. So first you introduce the figure. Okay, you introduce a figure. Then you describe factual trend and magnitude. Only describe the trend and magnitude you observe. Then you need to describe the explanation why. And then you need to compare with previous research and explain what's the difference. Okay, so one by one. So if you actually do this 6 points, your each figure you can actually write around 150 words or 200 words. You can write actually each figure 150 to 200 words if you do this carefully for every figure. Introduce figure first, describe the trend and magnitude, then explain why, then explain and compare with previous research to justify results. If you do this, you can make 150 to 200 words. So again, this is the example, you can see figure depicts, this is this. So this is the introduction of figure. Okay, this is the observation. Then explanation, you see, we wrote maybe. We wrote maybe because we are not sure about it. So we use this SCM image to explain some results, but this is not full evidence. So we wrote maybe. So if your hypothesis should not be too long, you don't write something which is not easy to explain or which is hypothesis. If your evidence is weak, we use this word maybe. This may be due to, this might be due to. But if your evidence is very strong, we write this is due to or this is likely due to, if you are more confident about evidence. Okay, you can see here, when your evidence is weak, we use this word maybe, might. Okay. And suppose for some explanation you don't have clear understanding, you can draw some figure like this to say hypothetical mechanism. You can draw a figure or a cartoon to explain some mechanism which you feel is not able, you cannot do the experiment. Okay. And also, like, this is also a kind of, if you look at here, this is again, we call it hypothetical mechanism, which we believe can influence our results. Now, this is important because sometimes you cannot describe everything in the text. But if you have a figure like this, hypothetical mechanism, this kind of cartoon helps to make your figure self-explainable. Now, this figure is helping this figure to explain the results, right? So explain the trend, bring out new insights, good for theoretical development. So this is something we expect, okay, in a good journal paper. Your results should not be left without explanation. Okay. So in summary, quality of figures is very, very important in improving the readability of manuscript. As I told you, first important point is you should be able to know how to draw good figures. If you don't know, then it's very difficult to write a good manuscript. The description of good figures, both experiment and results, should be factual. Explanation should be provided to justify testing conditions or observed data. And it's always beneficial to compare results with literature. I told you, if you want to bring novelty, remember these 2 points always in writing a paper: novelty and rigor. If you keep these 2 points in mind, if you draw figures by keeping these 2 points in mind, and if you write text, most likely you will always improve. Okay, and there is no perfection. There is no perfection in writing manuscript. Every day when we write manuscript, when we submit manuscript, we have something to learn. Okay, nobody is perfect in this world to write a very perfect manuscript. Okay, there is always chance to improve. And also, don't think all published papers, okay, are true or they are correct. Okay, every paper which is published can be improved. Okay, every paper have a chance for improvement. Okay. Cross-reference with literature, I told you comparison with literature very important for novelty of study. Also justify whether your findings are, in the reasonable range or not. So I will tell you now. So next is the conclusions. Okay. When you say conclusions, or some journals have summary and conclusion. So when you say conclusion, then you don't need to write summary. When you say summary and conclusion, then you can add one paragraph. Now, conclusions are not results. Remember, if you say you did some test, you get some results that are not results. Conclusions are findings from your results, insights from your results. And conclusion must have some explanation, something like mechanism. Summary and conclusion means the first you give is summary, and then you write conclusions. Okay, remember. So this is different. Again, in conclusion, I told you, try to avoid too many numbers because conclusions are not results. Conclusion has to be insights from results. Important checks just for when you complete your manuscript, conclusions has to be related to your objective. Now, sometimes it happens, when we start our research, we have some objectives, but after 1 or 2 years, when we finish our research, our objectives can change in the middle, okay? And conclusions can be, our conclusions can be a little bit different, you know. So you need to check when you complete your manuscript, is your conclusions pointing to objectives? If your conclusions are solid or not, have evidence or not. If not evidence, then you need to reduce the ambition of your objective. You need to tone down your objective. Okay. Like for example, if you write in your objective, you want to investigate something, you can change to explore. Explore means less ambitious. Investigate is more ambitious. Okay. So if your conclusions are solid, very specific, you need to think about your objective, whether you want to increase that, as I told you, when you complete your manuscript, you can still check some of the things. And also, you can check the number of pages you dedicate to results and conclusion, okay, compared to other parts. A description of each figure, at least should be 50 to 100 words, okay. And I told you, minimum required because you had to describe figure, you describe result, explain it, compare with literature like this. And theory in paper, most of the time we can forget theory. So always remember to use theory to explain your results. Okay, your title of paper, in the end, you can check it again. Does it satisfy the selling points of study, novelty, and all? Okay, so with this, I would like to conclude, I think, today's session. Cannot pick everything in detail, but more or less, I hope I have told most of the points. So if you have anything to discuss, we can discuss. Yeah, thanks.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Sir, thank you for your valuable presentation. In-depth knowledge you were given to all our participants. I request the participants to ask any questions to Ankit, sir.
Now the session is open for doubts. If anyone having any queries related, you can ask now.
Okay, still, if you are having any questions, you can send message and you can communicate us. Then we will post same to our Ankit, sir. And with the permission of Ankit, sir, can we post this recorded session in our YouTube channel, sir? In Aditya
Yes,
Engineering College?
sure. Yeah, you can do that.
Definitely, sir. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sir. And now to all the participants, we are posting a feedback link in the chat box. Kindly give your valuable feedback. So feedback will be given according to session wise. I think someone raised their doubts. Please carry on. Whatever the doubt that you are having, please ask.
Sir, how to draw figures neatly? Which software we have to use? Hello.
Software. Actually, I mean, most of these figures that I have shown, we don't need any specific software. I mean, you can even use PowerPoint or Microsoft Word to draw. These are not difficult to draw. I mean, most of these figures which I've shown, actually, you can draw using Word or my PowerPoint. Yeah, in the PowerPoint, actually, they have a lot of options. I don't think we need very specific. We can do that, but we don't need. These figures are not difficult to draw. These are just how to say, some of the graphics. You can take it from the internet, or not we cannot take pictures from the internet complete, but we can take some graphics, okay, like tree, some small trees or like this, depends. But most of these figures you can draw on Word file or PowerPoint. It's not difficult. Yeah.
Ankit sir, with your permission, uh, he can also use the Origin Lab software to present
For
their
the
graphs.
results, if you're talking about the results,
Yes,
yeah,
sir,
for
for the
results
results. Yes, sir.
you can use Excel or Origin. Origin can also do. Yeah. People use MATLAB, Origin, or I mean, I generally use for all my results I use Excel actually, but some students they prefer using MATLAB or Origin. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, all are okay. But the most important point is clarity. The figures that we draw should be very clear. I mean, for even for the results I haven't shown, but for the graphs also, the figures should be very clear in terms of font size, font type. Then the lines we draw, the symbols we use should be more easy to read. Should not be too much color. Actually, sometimes some students they tend to draw too many colors in one graph. The many lines are colored. The one is red, blue, yellow, green. Then it's not good.
Any other doubts from participants?
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Sir, how to decide the quality of any journal? Whether based on the indexing or based on the quartiles or based on the publication house. While deciding their journal, what thing is to be observed initially?
No, one is, I mean, you're asking about which journal we should submit, right? Or you're asking about, in general, the quality of journal, or which journal is
In
more
general,
reputable?
sir, quality.
Okay, quality of journal, I think it's a very, tricky question these days because, I mean, every community, like if I talk about geotechnical engineering community, which I'm more aware of, so every community have a society, geotechnical society. So there are well-known researchers who are associated with, certain journals. Like we have been focusing on Canadian Geotechnical Journal, Geotechnique Letters, Geotechnique, very traditional. But now these days, there are new journals which are coming up, even within certain community or many multidisciplinary journal. So quality we cannot define it, using an parameter. Usually people say high impact factor means could be high better quality, but I do not think this is the right way to define a quality of journal, because many high impact journals actually they tend to publish articles in much faster way. The more articles they publish, the more high impact they can get because more citations they have. To me, quality is determined by, you can say, a group of well-known researchers. I mean, their association or the papers. Actually, the papers that we read from a particular journal, if they have, if we feel that their publication quality is good in terms of writing or in terms of knowledge, then we can say that journal may have good quality. Okay, ideally should be like this. But famous researchers publish in famous journals, so we say these journals are good quality. But in reality, nowadays I think even famous researchers, they are trying to publish in different journals, not just 3 or 4 journals, but they're publishing, even many new journals are coming up. So it's a very well debated, I think, question, quality, and I don't think we can define by impact factor. I don't usually say that. Usually they call it indexing, like Scopus index or Science Citation Index, SCI. Okay, worldwide they call Science Citation Index, SCI, is considered to be uh, if a journal is SCI index, they consider this journal is likely to be have a better quality than other journals which are not SCI index. This is one thinking which many researchers have, but it's not always true. Many SCI index journals are also, I mean, publishing some not very good research. So there is no definite answer to this. It's only, I think, we can say some famous researchers in our community, which we know. I mean, if they are publishing in certain journals or a good work coming from certain journal, can make its quality better. Yeah. But I don't
Thank you, sir.
value, I don't agree with impact factor or indexing. I mean, to me, because many times now it's becoming very, not very, how to say, scientific. Yeah. I think most important is when we submit our work, we should make sure our work is scientifically written well. Okay, our results are scientifically sound. Should not be a mistake, like silly mistake or something. If 2-3 things we take care into account, I think we can publish in any. For me, we can publish in any SCA index paper or journal or Scopus index. Is not a big issue as long as if we have confidence in our work. Yes.
Any queries? Okay, sir. I think still, if is there any queries, you can send through mail also. So I can post same to our Ankit sir. And we are very thankful to Ankit sir for spending time with us for presenting an valuable and important lecture, including the microstructural studies, how all these things will helpful to write a better scientific paper. So we are very much thankful to you, sir. With your acceptance in the further days also, collaboratively, we will go ahead and will come up with some requests to present some lectures to our students also.
Yep, sure. Yeah, we can
Yes.
further explore it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Sir. Sir. And dear participants, give your valuable feedback by clicking on the link which we provided in the chat box. And tomorrow is a holiday, so due to that our session timings are changed. So tomorrow session will start sharp 6 o'clock in the evening. So kind request to everyone, please join with the same link which we are provided. Today, few participants are confusing which link we need to use to join the session. So once again, I'm clarifying, same link which we provided 2 days back, same link you have to use for all 6 days. So anyway, 2 days sessions are completed. Remaining 4 days will be there, but sessions are 5 because day after tomorrow 2 sessions are there. So tomorrow you are going to know about how to write a scientific paper, title to references. So how the good manuscript structure need to be, that also be covered in the tomorrow session. So tomorrow session is important. So kind request to all the participants to join within time. So as well as the journal indexing and impact factor related will also be presented by the speaker tomorrow. Okay, still in the today's session, if any faculty or any student is having any doubts or research scholar, kindly send your queries to the mail which we are communicating. So we will send same questions to our resource persons. Then whatever the answers that they are sending, we will send back to you. As well as we are also trying to collect the presentations from the resource persons. If possible, we will share all the presentations to you by the end of our lectures. As well as we are going to post the recorded session in YouTube also. Okay, I think yesterday also few participants have sent me their queries. So within half an hour, I sent answers to them also. Okay. Thank you, dear participants. With this, we are ending day 2 session.
Thank you, sir.